Hello, I'm Nathan P. Butler, author of a Saga on home video and host of From the Star Wars Home Video Library here on YouTube, and this is Star Wars Home Video Year by Year. This time we take a look at 2019. And this is definitely an odd one. This is very much a case of a company sort of jumping the gun on releasing something that they probably should have waited to release. So it's an odd year and a year that is a source for a lot of confusion for American home video collectors and just retail customers in general in terms of what they might get if they get the stuff that we highlight here. In context, this is a year that Lucasfilm Games launches. It is the year of the release of Jedi Fallen Order, the VR series Vader Immortal, episodes 1 through 3. The Galaxy's Edge theme parks open. We see the beginning of the second season of Star Wars Resistance. We see a new Star Wars Celebration in Chicago. We see The Rise of Skywalker released in theaters. And we see the launch of Disney Plus, a new streaming service that will premiere alongside a new Star Wars live-action television series, if streaming is considered television, which it typically is these days, The Mandalorian. But the other big thing is that this is the year that Disney purchases Fox, which is kind of a misnomer because that's not entirely what happened. We had seen rumblings of the idea that 20th Century Fox might be a target of acquisition for Disney around about 2013-ish. And then, of course, we saw in 2015 the launch of the digital collection of Star Wars films. It was kind of weird, the digital movie collection, where you had, because of the licensing rights, you had sort of basically the regular 2011 cut of A New Hope getting released with the 20th Century Fox fanfare on the beginning, because that was coming out regardless of the format type through 20th Century Fox. But then you had Disney with the digital rights to release the other 5 of Lucas's films, putting them out digitally at the same time as kind of a partnership, kind of a deal that they had going on. But those, because 20th Century Fox was not involved in the digital version, had those weird truncated fanfares at the beginning where the 20th Century Fox fanfare was completely removed and replaced by truncated music just over the Lucasfilm logo. Then we saw an unprecedented cooperation in 2017 with those holiday releases at Walmart, where regardless of whether you had any of these matching releases for the Disney-era films of the time, Force Awakens or Rogue One, or the other 6 live-action films in the trilogy sets or the 6 movie collection, Complete Saga reissue, they all had a little DVD of Volume 1 of Forces of Destiny, which was a Disney Star Wars animated series. Well, after more moves being made behind the scenes, we do finally see the purchase of 20th Century Fox by Disney in 2019. And basically, you had 20th Century Fox was part of this News Corporation that got split into News Corp and 20th Century Fox. And 20th Century Fox had a bunch of different entertainment assets, and they kind of got sold off piecemeal. But the important part is that the 20th Century Fox studio, which included all those rights for Star Wars releases in physical form and for all releases for A New Hope, that's getting gobbled up here. That's getting purchased here by Disney, which brings the rights to all of those film releases in-house. So no longer would we see physical copies of episodes 1 through 6 being put out through 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, and then the newer films through Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment. Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment would handle all releases going forward, because now they had all of those distribution rights in-house. And in 2020, we would see the release of The Rise of Skywalker on home video. And of course, that would mean some box sets for the original films, plus the new episodes 7 through 9 to give us a Skywalker Saga box set. We knew that was coming. And of course, a lot of these films had not gotten 4K releases yet. Only Last Jedi and Solo had up to this point. So surely we'd see more of that as well. So surely 2020 would be a big year for a lot of Star Wars home video products, as it actually would be, as we will see next time, even bigger in other markets than in the US. But they just couldn't contain themselves. They couldn't wait. So here in 2019, we get a new set of releases through Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment that really kind of are premature compared to what's going to happen the very next year. On Disney Plus in 2019, we see 4K releases digitally of the original 6 films plus all the other Disney-era films, including the ones that hadn't had 4K releases before. And for episodes 1 through 6, they are new, tweaked versions, newly recompiled versions of it. In fact, they're basically the versions that the 3D versions were based on, because it was during that process that they remastered all of them and did all these little tweaks to them. Not a lot of tweaks. Primarily, it's just cleanup and looking better, but it is a new version. In the case of A New Hope, they had the "McClunky" line from Greedo when confronting Han Solo. But there's this new version, this 4K version, known as the Disney Plus version at the time, of the films on Disney Plus. And the thought is, oh, wow, Those are Disney Plus versions. Surely they're going to keep those as exclusive to Disney Plus for a little while as a main draw alongside something like The Mandalorian. But no. As I mentioned back in the 2015 episode, they very quickly rolled out digital versions of those Disney Plus cuts to all the digital purchasing platforms. And by this time, most of those didn't allow downloading of content. It was streaming only. So if you had bought the digital movie collection back in 2015, those versions of the films disappear forever. They're gone, replaced by the 2019 cuts from Disney Plus. So on the one hand, you kind of got an upgrade. You get the newest version, but what you actually purchased is gone, and unless you downloaded them at some point in the past to keep them archived, they're effectively lost to history. Those digital 2015 cuts of episodes 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Remember, 4 was the same because of the way the distribution rights worked. And those Disney Plus cuts would find their way to physical media in 2020. But not in 2019. It's too early. When they start putting out new releases in 2019, it's going to be the 2011 cuts of episodes 1 through 6 from the Blu-rays that find their way to home media. Again, a little bit premature. There is no fanfare, there's no announcements around these releases. It's just rumors swirling for a while, and suddenly they start popping up in stores. You can find out all about that sordid story in From the Star Wars Home Video Library if you look at the episodes based on this stuff, or in a Saga on Home Video. But suffice to say, in 2019, right after the acquisition of 20th Century Fox and those rights by Disney, we get 2 new waves, sort of 3, of new Star Wars reissues from Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment. The first being DVD releases of episodes 1 through 8, and both anthology films up to this point. So all 10 live-action films thus far, except for Rise of Skywalker. So we get new releases of The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones. Notice the black border packaging, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Rogue One, and Solo. And in the case of the Disney-era films, it's just those same discs that we saw released in their original release years on DVD. But for the original 6 films, it's the 2011 cuts on DVD as we saw them in 2013 originally, just with new labels put on them. Then in keeping with what we saw with The Last Jedi and Solo back in the previous year, we get multi-screen editions that are Blu-ray and digital copies for the US with that branding. So we have here The Phantom Menace. They are all just the same kind of thing underneath, so I'm not going to show that every single time, but we have The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Rogue One, and Solo. And again, the Disney-era films are just their original discs being repackaged. For the original 6, you'll find that the labels are similar to what we saw on the DVDs here, but the content, again, is the same as what we saw, in this case, in 2011. But that's kind of a big deal because now, for the first time, when you purchase episodes 1 through 6, you get a digital copy with it for free in the United States. That's kind of a big deal. We'd only seen that with the Disney-era films up to this point. If you wanted to get physical copies and digital copies starting in 2015 of the original 6, you had to buy them separately. The problem with these is that these are the 2011 cuts. And in the case of these Blu-ray copies, it's just the Blu-ray film disc because there were no bonus feature discs up to this point. In 2020, we will see releases around the world on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, and so on, that will actually include the new 2019 cuts from Disney Plus on physical media. But in the US, for a long time, these will continue to be what's sitting on store shelves. In fact, even today, in 2025, if you find these on store shelves, you will see these in the same packaging. Now, my understanding is that in some cases, you can find copies where they have updated the discs inside in another production run that actually have the 2019 cuts on them. But there is absolutely no way to tell that by looking at the packaging. So not only do you get confusion in 2020 of people going out and trying to buy copies of the films because of all the hype, and yet if they bought the multi-screen edition or the DVD edition, they're getting old cuts, not the newest cuts. But also, in years to come, that confusion will continue because now you can find these that, up until a certain point, were guaranteed to be the 2011 cuts, somehow having the 2019 cuts on them. It was a mess. If Disney had just waited and handled the US like they handled every other region in the subsequent year in 2020, they could have avoided all of that confusion. Instead, they jumped the gun, jumped the blaster, and we get this premature home video release that's going to cause confusion in the years to come. Not a great call. We'll see more about them and how to differentiate the disc labels from 2020 from those in 2019 in our next episode. However, there's one other thing to note here. If you thought just those not getting announced at all and just showing up in stores was kind of a screwball way to release them, imagine also having a set of exclusives to a retailer that also didn't get announced, didn't get released at the same time, and were inconsistently distributed across the US. Yes, Walmart, after having dropped the ball with that Blu-ray only release of Solo that was a substandard version of the multi-screen edition with no digital copy, they kind of dropped the ball again from a promotional standpoint here with their set of exclusives for just the Skywalker Saga films, the 8 released thus far, to go along with this set. There were exclusives. You can find them by looking for a multi-screen edition that has this sticker on it. The sticker says exclusive lithograph inside, only at Walmart, and has a commemorative edition Skywalker Saga emblem on it, and a picture of a piece of concept art. Inside, you will find the regular release with your digital code, with your disc that has the new label on it, but also inside you will find a little concept art piece, nothing on the back, a concept art piece from that film. So given that I mentioned that the labels changed, let's very quickly look at the labels side by side with the concept art card from that exclusive Walmart version. There's the Phantom Menace. Notice we're looking at the Blu-ray version each time here, but the DVDs look very similar. Attack of the Clones. Again, you can tell by the sticker. Revenge of the Sith, again with the sticker there, and its new disc label and concept art piece. And just so it's faster to show you the concept art and the label, let me just show you what each package looks like with the sticker on there first for our remaining films here. Then we'll again look at concept art and discs. A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, and note this is the April 2016 disc, so it does not have the commentary on it that came with the 3D release later that year. And The Last Jedi, again, same label since it's a Disney era release, but it is just, in the case of this and Force Awakens, it is just the film disc, no Blu-ray bonus features disc. So 28 new releases for the live-action films here in 2019. 10 DVD, 10 multi-screen edition, and then 8 exclusive to Walmart as different variations of the multi-screen edition, and yet, not really something to celebrate, something more to pull your hair out about as we get into 2020. Then finally, there is one last release for us to look at here in 2019, and that is the complete Season 1 of Star Wars Resistance. There had been some hope with Star Wars Resistance that because we had seen Blu-ray releases for the Clone Wars, even the Clone Wars The Lost Missions when it arrived at Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment, and from Rebels, that maybe we would see Blu-ray releases for Resistance. Yes, Freemaker Adventures has set a precedent of us going from Blu-ray and DVD as options to just DVD the previous year, but the hope was, well, that's just Lego Star Wars stuff. Surely the flagship animated series of the era, which is now Resistance, it would get a Blu-ray release, even though most Disney TV releases at this point were only getting DVD releases, if anything. Nope, just like the second season of Freemaker Adventures, Resistance only gets a DVD in the US. In fact, this is the only release that Resistance gets at all. Not only is there no Blu-ray release of this season, Season 2 gets no release whatsoever on physical media. This is it. So kind of a frustrating year here of 2019 after a very busy last few years, and it's going to be a crazy year the following year as we start getting some box sets alongside individual releases. So join us next time as we look at the last of this series of crazy years and check out 2020.